Okay, here is my very simple to-do application. I'm taking a look at how it appears. Very simple, very straightforward. You have, I call this the header component, and it just has the title. And this I think I called it input to do, which is, this whole thing is called input to do. These two bad boys here, which maybe not the best name, but it is what it is now. And then this is just a list of to-dos, and this is a to-do item. So looking at the code makes a little bit more sense. Here we are in our app.tsx, and I have some components that I'm rendering here: header, input to-do, and to-do list. And it's getting the props from app.tsx. I'm getting the to-dos from a full fetch call, I would say. It's not a real fetch call because I'm not using a real database. I don't have a backend. I just made a fake backend here, and it just makes some mock data and returns a promise to make it kind of like a fetch call, but it's not really a fetch call. And it resolves by returning the mock to-dos. Those are get to-dos, and I can toggle them. I can add a to-do, and I can delete. So the functionality is very simple, it's very straightforward. And I did that intentionally because I don't want to get bogged down by the details of what I'm building, but rather talk about how code should be organized. And okay, so what's happening here is I have this guy called refetch to-dos, and the reason for that is because when I add a to-do or I delete one, I need to refetch the data so that I get my UI is up to date. If you're using something like React Query, I think it takes care of that stuff, so you wouldn't need probably something called refetch to-dos. It just kind of happens because it's getting refetched by itself, but that's another thing altogether. So in my header props, I'm passing in the title, and the to-do props, I'm passing it the to-dos, and it's getting this, I'm passing down this refresh, and then the input one is just getting the refresh. So that's it. It's very simple. This is kind of how I would have organized my code when I was first starting out. So I make a bunch of components. I think the first React tutorial I took explained it this way. This is what you need to do. You have a header header component. You make a folder called header, and then you dump your header and your header CSS in that folder. And the same thing with input, the same thing with to-do item and to-do. Whenever you have a component, just give it a folder, dump it in components, and that's it. That's as far as organization goes. That's fine if you have a small little application like this, for the whole time I'm showing you this application and this code, you have to envision a much larger application with not just a handful of components, but 100+ components and files that are a lot bigger in size than this. That's the only way it'll make sense, because otherwise to go through breaking these things down to smaller components, maybe it doesn't make sense if all you're working with is a simple application like this. But for the most part, hopefully you're not working with a simple application, you're working with a much bigger one. So that's where we are at. So briefly, just looking at these components here, you got your header, very simple, has just a div, and again the title gets passed in. Now what's happening with this business with the class names? Class names is a package you can download from npm, and what it does is it combines a bunch of different classes into one. So it's being used here where I'm having class name, which is passed down. It can potentially be passed down. It is optional, but if it's passed down, then it gets combined with the classes in styles.header. And you can look at it. You can look at the documentation on your own, but it's a cool little thing where it makes it easy to add different styles and combine them together for a component. And going back to, where is it? Why isn't it working? Okay. So input to do, again, not too complicated. Again, getting the class name passed down. I did that intentionally because if you want the parent to add styles to the child component, that's one nice way of doing it. This component handles some so-called business logic. I'm not sure I like that term, business logic, but it's what people say nowadays. But why business logic? Why not just logic? It makes more sense. Anyway, it has the handle click, and that adds the to-do to the list. And the to-do list just takes the to-dos that are passed in and puts them in a to-do item, and then that's how you get your list. So very simple, very straightforward. Let's look at how we can make it a little bit more organized with atomic design in the next video.